wings. Roger. Go forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds. Forward, drift. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
To what Al had to say, because we do have...
It's not readily apparent in how they're treating it in the public today, but there are a lot of real breakthroughs in terms of the technology for survival and everything else to get to Mars. And in spite of what Elon Musk says, we're not going to be there in 2024, or maybe 2054 or 2074. We don't know. And there's also maybe a question about justification of it. But as you just heard, setting this up on the moon, going through and adjusting, starting to find your ways to do it, you may or may not want to go eventually to Mars on that. But the cost is going to be much, much greater than some people are trying to tell you today.
Neil was a very, very comfortable, charming, reserved. I would say I'm prejudiced about First Man today.
The 4 panels radiating from the second stage presented a minor problem since inception. They have been redesigned and, beginning with Apollo 8, will be completely jettisoned. On board, command pilot Schirra and pilots Cunningham and Isley demonstrated that men could live and work in space with increased comfort and efficiency. All spacecraft systems were used and tested exhaustively. All performed according to plan.
Missions to the moon, the land is to establish a science base on the moon, similar to what we have in Antarctica today. Very hostile environment in Antarctica, but they live down there and they work down there, and there's good science. And in the future, as we build up this, let me call it a lunar science station, with crews cycling back and forth, it's going to be a real innovation, and I think from that we can develop systems and procedures that will reliably work in the future, to maybe even on to Mars with that. So I'm very excited about the science base that hopefully will develop as we go back to the moon. When you launch to Mars, buddy, you're on your own, and the communications is less and less and less, and so you're going to have to learn how to repair, replace, manufacture all of these things in space on the way to the moon. So, I mean, on the way to Mars. To me, Mars is going to be a big deal, and we're not ready to do that yet. I don't think with human beings. Al says, who should you send? Maybe you ought to send old guys like us, because who cares, you know, at the end.
We're also very comfortable watching TV all day.
Is he on the ground at all? Huh? He's got about 2 wheels on the ground.
You can do it. And so it depends on our Congress. And if we want to do it... The living in space is forever would be a real problem, I think, because of the human body is designed for gravity, really. And you get up in space, like in the space station, a year in the space station, you got to have a good exercise program. I think they're 2 or 3 hours a day they spend exercising to keep their muscle tone, to keep the body mass, muscle mass, and all of that stuff. And even with that, you have bone density problems in space. And so living in space, to go up and spend 20 years in space, I don't think right now is reasonable.
the space program is one of those things that this country has, which is really could be, and probably is for a great number of people in the country, a driving force. And I think that we really need to keep this kind of technology going if we're going to be leaders in the world.
We're not going to go where we need to go in space until lots of people go to space. I think that all countries in the world that want to expand our boundaries in space need to get lots and lots of people in space so they understand it, so they know what they can get out of it, and they can push their governments into funding the space programs. I think until we get to that point, we are not going to go out in space as quickly as we'd like to.
Material of the same sort. I'll try to get a rock in here. A couple. Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is. Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent? Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.